Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our meeting of the Strategic Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I've not been alerted to any fire alarms, so if there is an alarm, we will assemble in the appropriate place in the car park. Welcome to anybody listening online. It is very nice to have you virtually, and I shall whiz into the agenda. Item number 1, welcome. Apologies received. We've had apologies from Councillor Waller, Councillor Harvey and...
We've received apologies, Chair, from Councillor Harvey, Councillor Payne, Andreas Menzies, Canon Andrew Reid, Councillor Waller and Mark Andrews, the Chief Exec.
Thank you. That's a full slate of apologies. Item number 2, record of the meeting. To confirm the record of the meeting of this committee on the 31st of July. I was camping in the wilds of Norfolk, so I will obviously be abstaining. But if I could look at my very good vice chair to say that you are happy that that's a... And any other... Is everybody else happy? I assume, Councillor Carr, you're proposing?
I am proposing, Chair.
Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you ever so much, Councillor Ross. All those in favour? And 1 abstention, which is me. Item number 3, actions arising to review and update the actions arising from the previous meeting. Item number 1 is with regard to the level crossing. You may remember the length of time that the level crossing is down in Oakham, and obviously 2 level crossings. That was raised by councillors as an issue. It was actually noted on our annual report, which we took last Thursday. At the time, I noted that it is out of the jurisdiction of Rutland County Council and us acting as a highways authority. However, I was tasked to write a letter to Network Rail. That letter has been written, and obviously when we get a response, I will share that and see if there's anything that we can do. Item number 2, that was grant funding have been received. Are there any updates from that? Because I noticed that's officer updates there.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have contacted Paul Middleton and I'm chasing him for an update to see if he has actually sent the figures. And once I get a confirmation, I'll notify everybody.
Brilliant. And again, once we've got those distributed, we may decide to have a very quick virtual meeting to discuss if there's any sort of further work or indeed a proposal going forwards. Item number 4, do we have any declarations of interest? No, we don't. Item number 5, petitions, deputations and questions received from members. Have we any?
None received, Chair. These are from the public, not from the members.
I do apologise.
Thank you.
I think I've conveniently covered item number 8, which is question with notice from members. None received.
None received, Chair.
2 birds, 1 stone there. Item number 7, notices of motion from members.
None received, Chair.
Item number 8, consideration of any matter referred to the committee in relation to the call-in of a decision.
None received, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. And that takes us on to item number 9, which is the annual scrutiny report for 24-25. It is on pages 13 to 46 of your pack, and I will be cheerfully handing over to Councillor Ross to see if he would like to say a few words about it. But by means of introduction, scrutiny is really important, and I know that members who sit on this panel acknowledge that. Scrutiny is as good as the members, and also at this point we're very lucky to have a very supportive officer team who have provided information, given their time, given meetings, and particularly when you look at the evidence panels that we've had, it should never be underestimated as to how much additional work that creates. And obviously then following up those recommendations is really important, which is why we are in my section saying how important our work plan is to make sure that basically we're not wasting people's time and it adds value. Councillor Ross, and thank you as well. I shall hand over to you.
Thank you. I actually don't have anything to add to the comments that I made in my introduction to the report. I believe that that the committee acted effectively last year and delivered as was required by the council, and I will therefore recommend the report to this committee and to the council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments from other members of the panel? Everybody happy about the report? That's not a general question. Lovely. I'm assuming Councillor Ross has proposed it. I'm very happy to second. All those in favour of this going forwards? And that is unanimous. Thank you ever so much. Item number 9, item number 10, Q1 performance and delivery report. I'm assuming Councillor Johnson, you will be introducing that.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is the report that I introduced at Council last week, and it takes us through the performance report and delivery report for Q1. Sorry, that was the annual one. You're right. Deliberate mistake, I apologise. So what this does is take us through the performance report for Q1. And it contains a lot of key metrics. I don't intend to read them all out now. Glenn McGraw might want to point out some favourites in a second. But I think it's self-explanatory. I think it's a very good report, as was the annual one, and it shows that we are hitting a lot of our targets, and we are being very transparent with our information, I believe. I'll pass over to Claire if I can.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Yes, we've tried to make the report structured to our priorities, our corporate priorities, but also making it really clear where we are performing well, and just as much where we aren't and where we want to improve to help you with your scrutinisation of the report. I think this evening I was going to try to focus attention either side of that. It's looking really at how much more data-led I feel we're getting. So we had a positive annual report reflecting on last year. This Q1, our indicators are all improving in terms of the percentage of targets that are on track, and therefore less indicators where we aren't performing as well. But the steps we wanted to take to become more data-driven, I hope, are coming through now. So more KPIs. You'll see in the spreadsheet references to LG Inform, and that opens up a world of context that was mentioned quite a bit at council last week, and I think that's where that pride comes in, to realise, for example, in cleanliness, that we are up there in one of the cleanest counties that you can be in. So it's great to see that coming through. And then in the development section, and having Kirsty here with me, we wanted to point out that we're doing a lot of work to really demonstrate to you that the data is leading to decisions. We want to create a circle of purpose, if you like, is how I see it, where the commentary that we're getting quarter on quarter and bringing to you, we're then acting on. So it's mentioned in the report that that's with our finance colleagues, but also with communications. So hopefully you'll see more service-based communications coming out in the way that our waste recycling received a positive impact from a big communications campaign there. That's just a bit of an introduction.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Could I just clarify, in the paper pack, we've got pages 47 through to 53, so we haven't actually got any of the indicator performance tables in there, which was actually going to be one of my questions, but I think it has now been answered.
Very sorry. I believe the link to the spreadsheet should have been in the appendix, so I can only apologise that wasn't. So I can offer to send that out to everybody. My apologies.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions, and I thought it was my system, because I'm having a bit of a nightmare with the new Windows 11. So I thought it was something I couldn't click on. But what you have provided and what I have been able to read was really, really useful. And I guess for us going forward, because it is only Q1, so in terms of sort of Q2, Q3, Q4, are you going to kind of have the indicate, you know, where you've got like a rag, it's red, amber or green, and you've got an arrow whether it's going or it's, you know, you're similar to the national average or whatever. And obviously, we know Rutland's really small, so, and we know that small numbers can make a massive difference, either in a positive or negative way. So some of that context is helpful, actually, because it might only be 3, 4, 5 people or whatever, and it has a massive swing in the percentage because we're talking about small numbers. Percentages can shift hugely and be quite significant, and might tell a story actually is not to be concerned about, but it looks horrendous on paper. So I'm just wondering about going forward and what the plan is. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Carr. Hopefully when the spreadsheet does come through, I'm so sorry, you'll see that we have our RAG raters, we have our thresholds and how that's decided, we have our annual target, but then how that's broken down quarterly. So hopefully that will give certainly our immediate measure. In terms of that context stuff, we have the link then to the LG Inform, it's called Metric, that we can go in and see how we're comparing and to who. And then the small numbers, absolutely. So we mentioned it in our annual report commentary, particularly in Q1, for example, it's in our temporary accommodation, in our EHCP, because it comes down to literally 3 or 4 cases. So exactly your point. And it's just then how we word that to point that out without, you know, getting too specific by any way, because that does lead to huge percentage squiff. So we've got that. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Wilby.
Thanks, Chair. Bit of a broad question, really, but given that we've been trying to do things in a different way to be more efficient and everything like that, is there any way at this early stage that we can make a statement that the new way of doing things is actually producing this level of savings or efficiencies?
Just to question back on that, at this stage of reflecting on Q1, we would be able to, in the way that myself and Kirsty have come this evening to report on Q1, we could then look at our reflections there to be able to reflect that back. I think for savings, there tends to be a little bit of a lag there. So the waste example that I gave a moment ago, it actually takes a little while before we're able to shout about the savings for that, but we certainly do want to do that. And I think that's where linking into the LG Inform and getting the benchmarking data, you're able to dip in then to how other people are vocalising their savings, etc. So the idea of finance, communications, performance linked together, that's the very reason why we would want to do more of that as we go forward. So hopefully, not immediately, not something we can come out with in the next few weeks, but definitely something we want to put in train. So that it doesn't wait for an annual review, it does come out sooner than that. So yeah, we're looking out for those snippets, if you like.
Thank you.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Chair. just my comment actually follows on a little bit from what Councillor Stevenson and also Councillor Carr said earlier. I think I'm very happy with the way the information is being presented, and I entirely support the principle of data-led management. I think in terms of the narrative, under performance and delivery, the variance between in the EHIC plans, the 20 v90, it might be helpful if we drew out 2 or 3 substantive issues so that we can actually monitor how that actually moves over time, rather than simply looking at it as a 70% difference. It doesn't do anybody any favours. Thank you.
Yeah, just to say I agree. I think in terms of people understanding it and our wider audience, when you pull out a few specifics instead of coming away from those percentages, that does help. So, yeah, I'll look out for those opportunities. Thank you.
Anybody else on the panel?
Quick point, similar to what's already been said really, but it's kind of on that communications and like some of these figures are so fantastic, like how are we getting out there on the council website and like sort of celebrating the success a bit more widely. It just feels like we get a lot of bad press a lot of the time, and yeah, with some great numbers in there, it's just great to celebrate their successes. I just looked on the council website to check I wasn't talking rubbish, and there's nothing on there about our great cleanliness rates or low crime rates that are sort of in this report. But yeah, just a quick point on that really.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we could be better at showing off a little bit when this sort of thing comes through. So we've made the annual report this year very visual, and the idea there being that hopefully could be chopped up a little bit into social media posts and items that we can put out there, so that we've got that pride and hopefully make people sit up and go, oh, I didn't realise that, you know, feeding into Operation Legacy and that Rutland pride, and that's both internally and externally, so that we all know about that. So hopefully, if you've seen our new Instagram content, a few of those where we've got strong graphics in our brand with a couple of these statements will start to come through. Do take a look, yeah.
Councillor Carr and then Councillor Wilby.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that actually, and follow on from Councillor Lambert. Not everybody's on social media, so I was just wondering about sort of other formats. And forgive me, I read a lot of reports. That's something I'm used to. But a lot of people don't have time. They have very different styles of taking information in. I'm a very visual person, and I think it's really good that you are doing these key snapshots and giving some real strong messages. But I'm just wondering how else we could, and where else that could be displayed really, and maybe in some of the public spaces, and making it more visual for people who, I'm not on Instagram either, so I feel like I might, I know, I'm showing my age, but I'm just, there are many of us who are not accessing some of those platforms. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So I think there we would look at, if we work on the graphics for the social content, but then that could go in our email newsletter. I think we're on quite a high readership there. We want to have a bit of a slide pack on screens in our own building for your own awareness. And then if you see something that stops you in your tracks a bit, or you find interesting, then who's to say we can't transfer that? Once the content's been created for one platform, it then doesn't take an awful lot. It's saved as an image or whatever that can then be used elsewhere.
I'm just thinking about the library. Could somewhere like the library or libraries, I'm not necessarily thinking about just Oakham, but other libraries, a lot of people do visit for different groups and different areas, so it just might reach different audiences.
Councillor Wilby, you were next, but Councillor Johnson, were you about to just say something pertinent to this particular point? Is that what, do you mind if he exempts you? There we go.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was just going to say the annual report which I went through last week at Council is designed to be very accessible, particularly this time. Claire's worked on it very hard this year to make it a lot more accessible, which was an objective. We're not producing the same standard of report for the quarterly reports, partly because the cost of doing it and the preparation time is really high. So I think, whilst I don't disagree with Councillor Carr, I think we need to be careful that we don't end up doing it as a quarterly exercise in doing the whole thing, which it could quite easily sort of burgeon to do. So we need to be quite careful about how much information we put out in that form in terms of the physical forms.
Yeah, I completely understand, but I just think in terms of celebrations, you know, you only need to have 2 or 3 things that are on like a library screen or whatever. And, you know, if you go to the doctors, it will tell you how many appointments have been missed for that month and how much that's cost, or, you know, and it does kind of focus you on certain things while you're waiting for something. Or it was just, you know, I'm not sure how much time it would take to whiz something up and put it on a public platform. I don't know. There you go.
Councillor Wilby.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to extrapolate just a little bit further on that, and I made the point at council the other day. I understand exactly what Councillor Johnson is saying about, you know, there's lots going on, etc. But particularly at this time where we are, there are major decisions about to be made about who we join and all the other bits and pieces. I think it would be very useful if we can have a general comparison with some of the places where we might be going, so that people get an indication of how we're doing compared to some of the others. That's a pretty nebulous question, but I think at the moment it's really important.
2 points there that hopefully will be good news. So our performance metrics, our Power BI that we use, etc. We've actually been doing a lot of work with our neighbouring authorities as part of LGR. That includes a tool where we can make comparisons, join forces, etc. So I think that will be really fruitful as we go along. And then, yes, in the time that we're in, the investment of that time to send out some messages, I do agree. Something we tried as a pilot for this report that we're going to be doing for Q2 is actually when we're getting the data from officers and discussing the performance with them, Matt Wake, our communication service manager, is with me in that meeting. So actually that's quite an efficient way where if we hear something really great and that we want to celebrate, that is where we could, for the sake of 2 or 3 of those punchy statements, say, right, let's get that out, you know, sooner rather than later. So I'll bear the comments from tonight in mind and try and include it in that process for Q2.
Any other panel members? Yes, I thought you looked so you might like to, Councillor Chatfield L.
Yes, I just really wanted to repeat that it's really helpful to have what you could call sound bites, because quite often there are press releases which are really interesting, and of course we all read them, but if you publish those that come out quite long, people just don't follow those at all. If they can be made a lot more accessible. I mean, I'm actually on Twitter or X, whatever it calls itself now, and I know we do have a site, but I seem to be the only one that seems to be reading it, because I'm the only one that puts a like or makes a comment. So I don't know whether that can be made a bit more accessible. I hadn't actually thought of Instagram. I mean, I'm on Instagram. I haven't even thought of looking. So that would be really useful. Just and to try and cut the jargon, if at all possible.
Excuse me, yes, that was something that we wanted to really try in the annual report and now continue. It makes officers proud. Hopefully it makes you proud and helps it make it easier to advocate what we're doing in the council. So that plain language, absolutely. And then, yeah, if you take a look at the Instagram, we'd love your feedback. To me, I think it really brings through the brand a lot more in terms of you'll see our colours on there, we're using video content, etc. So in terms of something that you could share, but putting it on other channels as well, it would be great to have your thoughts as that as a way forward. And I do think it can be as simple as a graphic with, you know, that quote or that statement on there that you can then keep and share out yourselves.
Brilliant, thank you. Councillor Chatfield.
Just on the same subject, before I forget to mention it, in my new role as being a pensioner, I've been exploring the buses recently. If you could put posters out with just bullet points on, I mean, you've got a captive audience there. Nothing better to do than look at posters while they travel around. And seeing as they're getting it for free, they might as well.
Yeah, I think that's been where my cogs have been turning this evening when you were saying earlier about that captive audience, or when you've got that time, there's a screen in the post office, isn't there, where you know, you've got people. So yeah, I think that's a really good idea. It's something we can put out there. Thank you.
Congratulations, Councillor Chatfield. I feel you're in order for your new status. Now, one thing obviously, as you're aware, I do a sort of informal report which I'll send to Cabinet, so clearly that communications piece will be in that. The one thing that I picked up from the perspective of our scrutiny panel is the idea of substantive issues that we pick and then we follow through. I would suggest that that's something that scrutiny might be minded to do. We can't do that scene because once we've got the link to the appendix, don't worry at all, because that's actually completely answered my question and reassured me. Once we've got that, I think that scrutiny should be looking, not for the sake of it, but if there are substantive issues that would be sensible, and perhaps something, Councillor Johnson, that I can bring up with my meetings with Cabinet, and then that's sort of quite a useful value-added piece of work to track those through. But we would need some guidance from your good self just in terms of what we're looking for. And again, I think it's a good exercise for getting councillors used to that very data-based approach to how we scrutinise things. So if Scrutin are happy, I would like to make that as a proposal, that once we've had chance to look at the appendix for this paper, that we identify a couple of substantive issues which we will then track. In the first instance, I would suggest a sort of informal virtual meeting, and then we can look at putting it on the public agenda. Did that make sense? I'm happy to propose that. Do I have a second? Councillor Johnson.
Sorry, Chair, I was just trying to get in because I just wanted to pick up a point that Councillor Linda Chatfield made and Councillor Mark Chatfield made.
I love going backwards in a meeting.
I apologise.
The floor is yours, Councillor Johnson.
I was gently trying to raise my hand previously. You were very focused on your committee, which was fine. I think that the point I was just going to make was it's although officers are important in terms of presenting the information, even in this short report, there's 8 or 9 quite key points there in that report, even though it's a short report, that members can pick up and promote themselves. And so I think we've got to be a little bit careful searching always for the next thing. I know that Claire and her department are really keen to do some of this, and now we've got Power BI, data is more accessible and more manipulable than it has been previously, which is really useful. But what we need to do as members is use the reports we're given, because quite often the stuff is there. It's just that it's not presented in exactly the way that's being referred to, and sometimes we just need to manipulate things to be able to communicate, I think.
Yeah, no, completely take that point. And as said with this, until we've actually seen those, the appendix, it's and I appreciate that's a very good executive summary, and it may well be, hence my suggestion of an initial virtual meeting, informally, that actually go, you know, we're not going to pick substantive issues if there are no substantive issues, because that would not be adding value. I've got a proposer from Councillor Carr. Do I have a seconder from Councillor Carr, because I'm proposing? All those in favour? Thank you very much. That is unanimous. Moving on now to item number 11, which is the Q1 Revenue and Capital Forecast report. I am assuming, Councillor Johnson, that you will be introducing this report, and thank you, Kirsty, to be available for us to ask you questions, and Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is the normal quarterly report we get, and what it's projecting is the year-end result, but at Q1. So I tend to call it 3 plus 9, as in 3 months gone, 9 to go. So our figures tend to be reasonably accurate, and our projections are reasonably accurate. But there is quite a lot of uncertainty this year, which some of which we've had in previous years, some of which we haven't. So I think the important bottom line figure is that we're currently projecting an underspend of just over £500,000, which is good. There are mixtures by directorate in there, which is quite common. So adults on health, children and families, dedicated school grant resources are all slightly overspent, and places particularly is very underspent, with law and governance slightly underspent, and corporate costs underspent. So there's a mix in there. Quite often the overspends are due to the unpredictable nature of support, such as adults and health and children's, and the more unpredictable underspends tend to be in places where there's been a lot happening, and there's been a lot of uncertainty about how much support we get for the various things. So we were quite prudent when we prepared the budget, because we believed we were going to be ripped of quite a lot of money, which we were, but we in the end we were overly cautious, I would say, in places. It looks like we're going to have quite a substantial underspend there, partly due to events, partly due to the fact that the department is projecting to get a lot more income, substantially more income than it thought it was going to. Plus, we've had a lot of savings from the fact that we've now got a good highways and maintenance team. So the relationship with Tommy Bow seems to be going extremely well. We've now got a lot more permanent staff in the department, and so that both of those are giving us benefits, cash benefits, and that's quite important. Planning is the area where we've got a lot of income. Similarly, in corporate costs, again, which tends to be treasury and that sort of related, we're getting a lot more interest than we were projecting to, because again, interest rates were projected to go down faster and more deeply than they appear now to be going. And one of the things we decided to do right at the end of last financial year, which we didn't fully incorporate into budget, was there was an opportunity, because of cash flows connected with projects and other things where we were getting cash in early, that we decided to pay off some of the loans that were at higher interest rates. So we had some loans, for example, at 7.5%. So we paid those off. And what that means is we've had a saving in interest that we would have been charged, because members will be aware that we've got a mixture of borrowing and cash. And the borrowing tends to be very long term. So it's already been committed a long time ago. And so we always have a mix of those different items within Treasury. So, for example, the total underspend is projected at just over £500,000, and in reality just under £500,000, and that is additional income that comes from Treasury. So, you know, that's the balancing figure, if you like. Places where it's saving, as I've indicated, it's a combination of avoidance of costs that we thought we might have to incur, and also savings in terms of income. So we know the reasons why the numbers are slightly different. The key thing is that it is balanced, I think. There has been some reporting about the new Children's and Families policy about post-16 transport, some of which has been incorrect in that we did tighten the policy very slightly, but in working to apply it, we realised that the previous policy was not being applied in the way that it should have been previously in some cases. So it's a combination of the two effects, mainly the latter, former. And that's overall, it's a good job, because Children's and Families, despite that, is overspent because of the more unpredictable care costs. So that's the revenue side. If anybody's got any questions on that, I'm sure we can go into detail. There's also capital in there, which is, I hope, self-explanatory. I won't go all the way through capital because it tends to be quite different. And members will be aware we've got LUF projects as well as legacy projects that we're working on, and we hope that we are going to be able to achieve by the time local government reorganisation takes effect. One of the things that I think members will be aware of is that the grant that we were applying to, the lottery grant that we were applying to for the museum, came back as a failure. So we did not get the grant that we were. So at the moment we're looking to understand how we actually balance out our capital budget because of that change. Okay, I think that's probably the best I can do.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carr.
Thank you. And I get it. Budget's something I sort of have to grapple with in my work. And I know about how things are projected and particularly around unpredictable spends as well. So they can fluctuate massively. And I'm just thinking, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, because the post-16 transport has caused uproar across the county, as I know you'll be aware. And I'm just wondering how we can square it with a projection of £500,000 with not being able to fund post-16 transport, and those families that are just about managing, so on just over the threshold of being able to get some additional support. I'm just wondering how do we communicate that in a way where what they will see is there's 500,000 sitting in an account somewhere that's as an underspend, but we're missing out on being able to transport our child to a college when they have to remain in either education or training or, you know, sort of apprenticeship. So they don't have a choice either of what they do sort of post-16. And some of their needs are met in other areas like Melton Brooksby College, Stamford College as an example, so out of area as well. So I'm just wondering how we help or shape what that communication might look like, because you can see how some headlines can go, but I'm just wondering how we can sort of manage that. Thank you.
If I can come back, Chair. Yeah. So we did debate post-16 transport policy long and hard. At the time, we were significantly under threat, we thought, from government allocation in terms of grants, and we've managed to generate more income and save more costs than we thought we were going to. So there's often an imbalance. So there's two things I'll say in response, if I can, Councillor Carr. One is that when we decided on the policy that we've got, we benchmarked all the surrounding counties and districts, and we are now still offering a greater offer than all of our surrounding districts and counties. So what we try to do is make sure that we're fair, as in if you're in Rutland, you're going to be close to Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, Leicestershire, Northamptonshire, Lincolnshire, rather than getting a lot more benefit. I understand that people don't necessarily understand the difference in revenue budgets and why things are like they are. And we need to be careful about how we communicate this. But it's also true that we have been subsidising to a very large effect, much more than other councils have. One of the things about our decision was that we felt that it was important that we weren't burdening all the residents of Rutland, and where just only a few benefited, and that was unfair compared to the surrounding counties. So that sort of took part of our decision. The other thing I need to say is, although we're projecting a slight surplus, as in a slight underspend, there is vast amounts of uncertainty around. So, as you rightly say, budget is all about juggling ups and downs and this sort of thing. And Kirsty, I'm sure, can emphasise this far more eloquently than I can, but the amount of threat that we're under is very high. So we do need to be careful. If we changed policy now, I think that would be the wrong thing. However, in terms of a solution, if somebody is having particular difficulty and they are suffering because of their own cash flow, their own hardship, then there is a hardship fund available they can apply for. So it's not, we haven't withdrawn all the support. So I understand that some people will be concerned because of the changes, but we do have a hardship fund if that's applicable, and that still has the same funding. Okay.
Councillor Wilby.
Thank you, Joe. I understand all those points, and I know it's tough at the moment, but I just wonder, something which is so important across the county, I wondered whether that should not have been brought up to full council, so you would have got a wider discussion about how the money might be spent, or what we do, and then make the policy from that full council interrogation.
Entirely up to you, Councillor Johnson.
But yes, what I was going to say was, yes, I understand the point, but budget is brought to council, and also we have a forward plan where we know what we're going to be discussing as we go through the year, and that's published transparently. If there was a want to bring that sort of thing to council, then I think we would have to examine the governance and make sure we understand what's applicable.
Other panel members? I would, if I may, just pick up on the post-16 as well. I'm not going to repeat the points that Councillor Carr has said, but I am just going to pick up on just a couple of points that you've made there, Councillor Johnson. I completely understand that you look at what other counties are offering, etc., etc. We are, I think I'm right in saying, in a unique position where the options for 16 plus within county is one state school which has an academic focus and two private schools which are out of the remit of an awful lot of our parents and carers. So therefore, I think our circumstances are somewhat different. We're a small county, so in terms of petrol, diesel or electric car costs to get to Harrington, that is considerably smaller, and I will be very mindful because I'm currently driving my child to Stamford. Yep. What? Thank you. So my interest is that my son would never have actually been using the school buses, but I do have a 16 plus child. I did declare that in the full council meeting last Thursday. I will make my point though, because I think I would make this regardless of whether I had children or not. The hardship fund, we keep referencing that, but I think it's actually quite a small amount per person, and it might be that Scrutiny actually want to just, again, have a look at that hardship fund, what the criteria are. What I would be minded to ask, we are moving into budget setting. My first question is, does 16 plus transport count within the commissioned transport block? And that might be a go away and have a look. I think it is in commissioned transport, but do correct me if I'm wrong. It's a while since I've had that portfolio. What I would ask, please, I believe it was a cost of 116k that was saved on the post 16. I appreciate the demand-led budgets. I appreciate the financial risks that we live through and live with. What I would ask, though, in the budget setting process, if we could look at that again. I don't know if Scrutiny would be supportive of that, but I would propose that we are given the opportunity just to look at that specific thing. Thank you, Kirsty.
Absolutely, I don't see a problem with that point. I was just going to draw Scrutiny's attention to the Appendix A, where there are risks on transport that, you know, at the maximum could be 400k that we're still exposed to this year. So this is a quarter one, as Andrew and Councillor Johnson said, that's 3 months. We've based a forecast on 3 months provision. We are overspending just under 4 million, and it is rising on our special educational needs, and that has transport costs as well. So there is a big risk there. And whilst it is $500,000, and I would say forecast as an underspend, that is relatively small for the amount of risk that this council is carrying. So I would just draw your attention to the level of risk and that exposure in terms of values as well.
Yeah, and I think that is the responsible thing to do. And I think we've known for several years that there were going to be some very difficult decisions to make. What I would suggest, Scrutiny, is that looking at 16 plus in isolation may be unhelpful. However, I do think that we need to look at that transport, commission transport, and those headlines very closely as we move into budget setting. Do I need to do, are people happy with that as an approach, that we are looking very closely at transport?
Point of clarification, Chair. Are we talking about doing this separately, or is this going to be part of the run-up to the budget as an additional exercise? I'm not comfortable with looking at it as a discrete item of itself, but I am perfectly content if we're actually going to look at the forecast outcome as predicted. But I think it's important that we recognise that this is the Q1 figures, and there's a lot that can change between now and Q4. So I would not be supportive of at this juncture looking at transport in isolation. I'm perfectly happy at any time that we actually look at particular aspects, key areas of spend within the budget. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's reasonable. I'm absolutely in the panel's hands in terms of, clearly we have budget setting coming. Clearly, we're not in a position to call back that policy decision anyway, because it's within the 6 month within our constitution. What I am suggesting, though, is that the strength of feeling from residents is such that we do in some way absolutely need to listen to that, and we do need to look into that. So I'm open to suggestions, but I definitely think that we need to flag that up in this meeting, that our residents have been impacted by that decision. and therefore we need to revisit it. If it is a part of the budget process, then that is down to us as individuals to be minded to look at that very closely through that process. If we are satisfied that we can do that rather than a discrete piece of work, then I'm very happy to sort of pause it for the time being, because I take the point it is Q1. If Scrutiny are happy for us to pause it and say that we will pay close attention during the budget setting process, I think that is sensible. But as I say, I'm in your hands. Any bright ideas on a postcard? Thank you very much. And also we do have Q2 coming up in November. I've just had my elbow nudge. So possibly if there is no formal recommendation from this, I will put on my report to Cabinet that it has come up and that we will be looking at that again in the November Q2 outturns. I'm just looking for eye contact. Is everybody happy that that is an equitable outcome of that particular discussion? Councillor Lamb.
I'm just trying to get my head around in what way can we add value in the budget setting process? What is Scrutiny like? Do you see it as an extra layer of like consultation with the public, or just literally scrutinising the budget, particularly around the area, and just what does it look like in practice? What we're talking about.
So what I would say there, Councillor Lambert, it is what do we see it looking like in practice? We definitely know that there are residents who are upset. I'm going to use my words very carefully. We know residents are upset about this. We don't know actual impact because people are usually fairly private about their finances. For example, the family that have used a credit card to pay the additional £400, which means they actually pay more than £400 because of interest rates. We don't know that answer. So that, I would say, what do we think we should do at the moment, given it's Q1, given the fact that we don't have data on how many people have accessed the hardship fund, for what reason, and that might be confidential. It is a case of, I think, hold that thought, look at it again in November, but it is very much a team effort in terms of how we do or don't proceed with that. But I absolutely think we must acknowledge that it has not been well received in certain quarters of our community. Councillor Wilby.
Thanks, Chair. I don't think we've ever been let down by the budget setters. And I know that Kirsty has come in and taken over and done a cracking job on there. So I've no doubt that we will end up in the best place that we possibly can be. But I do think, and I re-stress the point I made before, that where we've got something which is a really important across the board sort of topic, whether Cabinet has got the ability to sign it off on their own, I think it would be far more prudent to take the nod that hopefully Scrutiny will give, because as a scrutiny panel we're only just producing the thoughts which come from across the board, but then discuss it in full council and a full and free discussion so that everyone can be advised and aware of the costs, the pitfalls and all the other things, so that when the decision is made by Cabinet, in this case, then everyone knows exactly where we're headed. I think clarity and complete visibility of what's going on is really helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Wilby. I am minded to say we do have a very clear governance structure outlined within the Constitution and various, and that does need to be followed for all our decisions to be sound. What, though, I think my takeaway is, and do correct me if I'm wrong, panel, clearly there is a role for scrutiny. We are not quite sure specifically what that is. We've got a couple of indicators that we will be looking again at the 27th, and I know, Claire, you've made a note of our particular area of interest. I also think it would be useful to have any data on hardship fund, and I would also like to understand that process, and I know it is on the website, in terms of accessing the hardship fund, what the thresholds are. I suspect I will be going and scurrying and looking at the website to check before we ask for that in any way formally, because I am mindful, Councillor Johnson, your point, there is a lot of information on the website, and I think that we as members, it is a useful exercise for us to find those answers because actually that's what our residents are doing the whole time. Any other further comments? Lovely, in which case I will move on to item 12, which is the review of the work plan. We do have one proposal form which I will come to probably after we've looked at the work plan initially. Just to note, the Cabinet on the 14th of October is a very full agenda which Scrutiny, if we're not at work, I think would find helpful to attend virtually or catch up with the minutes, because there's some pretty hefty items on there on the 14th, flooding reports and that sort of thing, which obviously we did have a piece of work at Scrutiny. Forward plan on the website, I'm assuming everybody's had a look at that. I think, she said tentatively, we have actually already got on our work plan from that forward plan, things like local government reform and that sort of thing. Were there any other comments on our forward plan as it currently stands? Oh, yes, there is from here.
Thank you, Chair. Just one update which I've been notified about today. The employment stroke economy update that was due to be presented to the committee on the 16th of October has unfortunately needed to be postponed until the next meeting on the 27th of November.
Right, I'm looking at the 27th of, I'm just whizzing through because we've got a very full meeting on the 27th of November, am I? Yep, I'm just, do you mind just popping yours there, Chair? I'm scrolling like Billio and getting nowhere slowly. So October, has everybody else got theirs in front of them? I shall helpfully do a highlight. So that would mean that we would have local government reorganisation on the 16th, which possibly would be sufficient for the whole meeting. It does mean, certainly from the Chair's perspective, it does mean on the 27th of November, however, that would be employment economy, adult social care, public realm, quarter two revenue and capital, quarter two performance. I think that is an agenda that is too big. Are you happy that I have a chat with officers, Cabinet and Jane and sort of feedback, but are we in agreement that that is far too heavy, because all of those items are important. So if, with your permission, I would like to take that away, have a chat to officers and Cabinet and feedback via email on that, if we're happy to do that. Lovely. And then the next bit, January, we've obviously got the scrutiny. Yep, the budget meeting, which we've already alluded to in terms of the transport element. Were there any other comments on the forward plan? We have got quite a few gaps for the rest of the year. We have got our training, though, in October, which I'm hoping will give us inspiration, guidance, and back to that key point of adding value. It's in October. We've got scrutiny training booked in. And I hope I said October, because I meant it was October in my head. Good, and I'm getting full nods there before I finally think that I have actually gone mad. No comments, please. Now, if members are happy, then, so we've got that one action point, which is just to look at distributing November a little more. We've now got the proposal, and we are just hunting for a copy of it, the proposal for the, oh, you are very good, proposal form, which is from Deborah Mitchell, Assistant Director of Integration and Transformation at the LLR ICB, and it is about the winter health plan for 25-26. I will just remind members we do have representation obviously on the LLR Joint Health Scrutiny panel, and I am mindful that we make sure we use that effectively for Rutland. But other than that, any comments? Obviously Deborah isn't here to introduce it. It is as it says on there. I did have a discussion in a agenda setting meeting about what the value added would be for scrutiny. One element I thought was sort of assurance for residents and understanding how the different agencies relate together, but I will hand over to Councillor Ross.
I agree with those comments that you made. I wanted to make a proposal, dare I say, with regard to the proposal by the ICB. I think that we should look at getting, if we are going to consider this, we should ask for a comparison between what has been proposed over the preceding 2 years, given that the CQC in its audits has thrown up issues around emergency care in the hospital on 2 occasions now, and I tend to agree with you. I think if we are simply to look at the report as presented without any context, remember, I don't think there is a great deal of value to be added. And I think it's important, given that not only have the CQC reported critically on those areas, we now also have the government referral for the maternity part of the July CQC audit. So my suggestion is that if it is to be considered, that we ask them to put the plans this year in the context of that which has gone before. Thank you, Chair.
I think that is absolutely spot on the money there. I mean, I absolutely support that as a proposal. Are there any? Is anybody not supportive of that, or any sort of further questions with it? So, oh yes, Councillor Lambert.
Potentially moronic question. How would this work with the timing in the work plan? Like when we're reviewing it for winter?
That absolutely is not a moronic
Really
question at all. It is a very good question, Councillor Lambert. Yeah. October, I have just been... No, so we've removed, so we were going to have the economic piece of work. So it was going to be a 2-item agenda in October. One, the economic one, it won't be ready, and it's November that is looking fairly bring your sleeping bags. So, yeah, so Councillor Ross, I think your proposal, and so Councillor Ross is proposing that we are happy to take it, but we would like it within the context with comparisons with the previous 2 winters, 23, 24, 24, 25. I'm happy to second that. All those in favour with that proposal? That is unanimous. Councillor Wilby?
Something as important as this across the board, isn't it something that should be addressed as a council teaching briefing?
So the Health and Wellbeing Board will have received this. I absolutely take your point on that, Councillor Wilby. I'm wondering if there's a mechanism for me to use the item under the agenda, and Angela isn't here, for reports from Scrutiny, whether that could be interpreted as a not formal reports, but that an update could be given with that, given that I think the winter plans, a bit like, well, it's safeguarding and it is everybody's business. So I think if we could... Sorry, Councillor Wilby, what I'm suggesting is the reason that you've said it's the business of whole council is rather like safeguarding. We all need to be aware of it so that we can disseminate that information within our wards. So whilst we acknowledge the importance of the Health and Wellbeing Board on that sort of governance structure, this is around all councillors being aware of the plans.
Absolutely right.
Lovely. So what we, having some advice there, we will put it on the agenda for the next meeting with that, with your excellent proposal, Councillor Ross. Not wishing to predetermine the outcome of an agenda item that has not actually yet been set, there then would be the opportunity to recommend to Cabinet that it is disseminated to councillors, and certainly I will check with Angela that I'm able to do a report under the reports from Scrutiny item at the next full council meeting. Got there in the end. Lovely. Was there anything else under the review of the work plan? I think we've covered everything, which is lovely. I then move on to item 13, which is the group panel updates. Food Waste Strategy Communication Working Group.
I have drawn the short straw as Councillor Payne is away. So since the last meeting on the 15th of July, the new black bins will be issued with no food stickers, to make it quite clear, because that actually is basically supporting the message that the combined capacity of the food bin and the reduced size of the black bin is more than sufficient to meet the current requirement based upon a 2-weekly collection cycle. We've also all received the member toolkit has been distributed. I would simply highlight the asks of councillors that there are suggested social media posts that are included where we have access and indeed knowledge of social media. A poster to be circulated and used, and a suggestion that there is ward meetings. I personally have some, this is something that I'm going to raise at the next meeting, because I have concerns about how we generate interest in terms of attendance, because in Oakham North West, in relation to local government reorganisation, the turnout was quite poor. In terms of the comms programme, that has now commenced, and there have been a number of school visits and community coffee mornings and education talks on the changes to food waste. Our next meeting is on the 29th of September, which I believe is Monday, to review and refine the comms programme, with the major rollout taking place from January 2026. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I think to underscore the point, we've had the member toolkit and it is everybody's business. if we can reduce our black bin waste, we will be saving money because we pay a lot on gate fees. Again, I'm just looking over to the powers that be, but it is really important. I'm always disappointed that nobody has supported my idea for a Rutland pig farm, because that would deal with food waste very quickly. Apologies for saying that. I've got sheep, not pigs currently. There we go. No conflict of interest on this one. And I think that brings me to... Sorry, it brings me to Councillor Wilby.
I wasn't quite sure from your brief, and that was probably my taking it in, but when they get the new bins, are we going to get, is every household get one of these helpful little stickers like we have recycling, which will say this is going to go in and that's going in?
Yes.
And on a minor point, every RAF station used to have a pig's wheel farm, the pig farm to take all the rubbish.
How very sensible. Councillor Ross.
I was just going to say that we haven't included pig farm in our calculations for capital spend.
Councillor Ross.
Sorry. To answer Councillor Wilby's question, the answer is yes.
I knew you'd have it covered.
Brilliant. Any other comments or points? Any other comments or points about the food waste communications? No, in which case I'll whiz on to item number 14. Are there any other items of urgent business?
None have been received, Chair.
Lovely. And then the date of the next meeting is on Thursday, the 16th of October. Here, it looks as though we will have a very interesting next meeting with local government reorganisation, and now looking at the winter plan. On that note, I will close the meeting at 8:12.